Hello everyone, I'm Mike, and today we're going to compare Next.js and React. There's no shortage of JavaScript libraries and frameworks for modern web developers. One of the most ubiquitous libraries is React, which Facebook, now known as Meta, created to help build feature-rich applications. React applications traditionally run in web browsers, but the Next.js framework extends React functionality to the server side through the JavaScript runtime environment Node.js. In this video, we'll look at Next.js and React so that you can decide if they're right for your next project. But before we get started, I want to let you know that there'll be links to more resources in the video's description. And remember, subscribe and ring that bell to get notifications for future helpful content. Now, let's compare these two tools. Next.js is an open-source React framework that provides the building blocks to create high-performance web applications. Major companies have since adopted it, including Twitch, TikTok, and Uber, just to name a few. Next.js offers one of the best developer experiences for building fast, SEO-friendly applications. These features help Next.js developers save considerable time on configuration and tooling. You can jump straight to building your application, which might support projects like the following: e-commerce stores, blogs, dashboards, single-page applications, interact user interfaces, and static websites. React is a JavaScript library used to build dynamic user interfaces. In addition to creating web interfaces, you can build mobile applications using React Native. Some benefits of using React include improved performance. Instead of updating each component in the DOM, React uses the virtual DOM to update only the changed components. Heavily component-based. Once you create a component, you can reuse it repeatedly. Easy debugging. React applications use a unidirectional data flow from parent to child components only. Although developers often use Next.js and React for the same purpose, there are some fundamental differences between the two. It's easy to start with Next.js and React. Each requires running single commands in your terminal using npx, which is part of the npm for Node.js. For Next.js, the simplest command is this, with no additional arguments for create next app. The installation will proceed in interactive mode. You'll be asked for a project name, which will be used for the project directory, and whether you want to include support for TypeScript and the code linter ESLint. It will look something like this. When initializing a React instance, the simplest command includes a name for the project's directory. This generates a folder containing all the necessary initial configurations and dependencies. While both make it easy to begin, remember that Next.js is built on top of React, so you can't learn Next.js without first learning React and understanding how it works. Fortunately, React boasts a gentle learning curve and is great for beginners. It's also important to note that React is relatively unstructured. You must install and set up a React router and decide how to handle data fetching, image optimization, and code splitting. This setup requires you to install and configure additional libraries and tools. By contrast, Next.js comes with these tools pre-installed and pre-configured. With Next.js, any file added to the Pages folder automatically serves as a route. Because of this built-in support, Next.js is easier to work with daily, enabling you to start coding your application's logic immediately. Because Next.js is based on React, the two share some features. However, Next.js goes a step further and includes additional features like routing, code splitting, pre-rendering, and API support right out of the box. These are features that you would need to configure yourself when using React. React renders data on the client side. The server sends static files to the browser, and then the browser fetches the data from the APIs to populate the application. This process reduces app performance and provides a poor user experience since the app loads slowly. Next.js solves this problem through pre-rendering. With pre-rendering, the server makes the necessary API calls and fetches the data before sending the application to the browser. As such, the browser receives ready-to-render web pages. Pre-rendering can refer to static site generation or server-side rendering. In SSG, the HTML pages are generated at build time and reused for multiple requests. Next.js can generate HTML pages with or without data. Here's an example of how Next.js generates pages without data. For static pages that consume external data, use the getStaticProps function. Once you export getStaticProps from a page, Next.js will pre-render the page using the props it returns. This function always runs on the server, so use getStaticProps when the data the page uses is available at build time. For example, you can use it to fetch blog posts from a CMS. In situations where the page paths depend on external data, use the getStaticPaths function. So to create a path based on the post ID, export the getStaticPaths from the page. For example, you might export getStaticPaths from your .js file as shown here. GetStaticPaths is often paired with getStaticProps. In this example, you would use getStaticProps to fetch the details of the ID in the path. In SSR, data is fetched at the request time and sent to the browser. To use SSR, export the getServerSideProps function from the page you want to render. The server calls the function on every request, which makes SSR useful for pages that consume dynamic data. For instance, you can use it to fetch data from a news API. The data is fetched on every request and passed to the news component via props. Code splitting is dividing code into chunks that the browser can load on demand. It reduces the amount of code sent to the browser during the initial load, as the server sends only what the user needs. Bundlers like Webpack, Rollup, and Browserify support code splitting in React. Next.js supports code splitting out of the box. With Next.js, each page is code split, and adding pages to the application does not increase the bundle size. Next.js also supports dynamic imports, which allows you to import JavaScript modules and load them dynamically during runtime. Dynamic imports contribute to faster page speeds because bundles are lazy loaded. For example, in the home component you see on screen, the server will not include the hero component in the initial bundle. Instead, the suspenses fallback element will be rendered before the hero component is loaded. The Next.js API routing feature enables you to write backend and frontend code in the same codebase. Any page saved in the Pages API folder is mapped to the API route, and Next.js treats it like an API endpoint. For example, you can create a pages/API/user.js API route that returns the current user's name like this. If you visit this URL, you will see the username object. API routes are helpful when you want to mask the URL of a service you are accessing or want to keep environment variables a secret without coding an entire backend application. Next.js is undoubtedly superior in its ability to create better performing apps with a simplified process. SSR and SSG Next.js applications perform better than client-side rendering React applications. By fetching data on the server and sending everything the browser needs to render, Next.js eliminates the need for a data fetch request to APIs. This means faster load times. Furthermore, because Next.js supports client-side routing, the browser does not have to fetch data from the server each time a user navigates to another route. Additionally, the Next.js image component enables automatic image optimization. Images load only when they enter the viewport. Where possible, Next.js also serves images in modern formats like WebP. Next.js also provides font optimizations, smart route prefetching, and bundle optimizations. These optimizations are not automatically available in React. Because React has been around for longer than Next.js, it has a more extensive community. However, many React developers are adopting Next.js, so that community is growing steadily. Developers are more easily finding existing solutions to problems they encounter rather than having to build solutions from scratch. Next.js also features excellent documentation with comprehensive examples that are easy to understand. Despite its popularity, React documentation is not as navigable. Here at Kinsta, we take hosting and performance to the next level. With our application hosting, you can run almost any app in a matter of minutes with full support for all your favorite languages and frameworks. And our database hosting allows for easy database creation with full control over every aspect of your project. Explore these features and more at kinsta.com/application-hosting. Thank you so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tutorials, explainers, and helpful content like this.